and welcome back to the course. Today we have something actually very useful, code templates. Code templates are little templates that are the basics of a script that we don't actually have to worry about or repeatedly type out over and over and over again. It's just extremely useful. It's not the most important thing to learn, but it really does kind of improve efficiency, and it just feels better to be able to have a default template kind of lined out or set up for you. Now, there are two types of templates in Godot. There are the project-specific templates and global templates. I will be going through both of them. We'll start off with project-specific templates. Project-specific templates are templates only available within the current project you are working on. Now, that means the easiest way of showing this is if I go into my scenes here, and I go into pretty much any folder will do. We'll go into the handlers, why not? And I go and create a new script in here of any type. You'll see here that there's a template and a little checkbox. You can get node, no default, and object empty. These templates come with, as I say, a base template for a node with default Godot cycle methods. So these basically just come with a few lines of code just set out and ready and sorted for you. Now, one thing that I thought about is we're going to be using and creating a lot of different states for our state machines and our many different types of state machines, but they're all going to have a similar few lines of code. If I go into my idle state here and we look at our enter, exit, ready, and physics process, these are the same four functions that are repeated throughout every single state. So it would be a really good idea to kind of automate the creation of all of these functions and the setting of the physics process, so we never really have to think about it. And that's kind of where templates come in. Now, we'll set up the project-specific templates first. To do that, what you need to do is you go into your root folder here where it says res :// you hit create new and create a new folder, and then you need to call it script_templates. Now, you need to make sure it's called script templates because this is the default path that Godot will actually look for when it looks for script templates. So we'll create that, and now we have this new folder called script templates. Now what we need to do is actually create a new folder named after the node or class we actually want to give a template to. So I want to give a template to the player state specifically, right? Now, I could just go do player state, but there is a really cool thing that we've kind of managed to do here, and that is with the inheritance that we've done. Player state inherits from state, which means what I can actually do is set up basic default states or basic default templates for the original state class or state node. And that will then allow us to use that template when we create player states, enemy states, pretty much anything else that inherits from state. So we'll go do that now. We'll create another new folder, and this one will be called state. Now, why is it called state? Well, once again, if we go down to our state machine here and we go check state.dg or .gd, there we go, brain, and the class name is state. So we want to make sure that the folder itself is called state. And now in here, we create a new script. We will call this one what we actually want to name it. So I'm going to call this the default _player_state. So this is the default state for our player. It doesn't need to worry about inheritance or anything like that. We can just hit remove the template, hit create. And now if we go into state here, we'll see that we've got kind of just a blank slate, right? Now, if we go back into the state machine and then go into the player states folder, and then I create a new script, and I get this to inherit from state, and I use templates, you'll see here that the default player state is now appearing, which is great because that actually means that it will use whatever this script actually is as its default starting position or default starting code. Now, we're going to need to automate the actual code itself, right? So to do that, what we can do is we can go into our idle state, we can pull all of the code that we need, so the ready, enter, and exit state functions. We can copy those, go back into our default player state, and paste those in. So we now have these lined up. You're going to get a few errors here. We can just delete those lines because those aren't actually always going to be the same thing across every other state. Then we can come to the very bottom here and make sure that we give this also like access to the physics process immediately. I can write pass. And now we're going to do something else, right? You'll notice that if we kind of just use this template as a default already, I'll hit Control S and save, go into player states, go and create a new script, make this inherit from state, and you'll see default player state. Okay, let's do the player state check as well and make sure. Yep, there you go, default player state. So it's still inheriting from state and we can still get that template. I'm going to rename this to test script. Hit create. Now I'm going to go and open that and you'll see we get the code that we've kind of put in, and that's great. But the one thing it's not doing is it's not extending the right class. It's extending node. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete this script because we don't need it. I'm going to go back into the default player and we're going to do something a little bit odd that will cause it'll cause a red error to appear, but it's not an error you actually have to worry about. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the extends here where it says extends node in the default player state that we have created for the default template, and we're going to use an underscore. Then we're going to write base in all caps and then underscore again. Now I'm going to hit Control S and save. Now you'll see here it says could not find base class base. I don't actually completely know how to get around this error without going and disabling the error hinting and stuff, but if you disable the error hinting, then this will actually stop appearing for, well, most of your classes or all of your classes anytime this error actually appears. But if I go back into the player state, I create a new script. I call it, just call it test script. Make sure it's actually visible and seen. Make it inherit from player state. We'll use the default player state template now. Hit create. Now I'll go into it, and you'll see it's now extending player state correctly. So that base keyword with these underscores basically says, hey, take the thing that we're inheriting from and use that as the class name, or take the thing that we want to, take the thing that we're inheriting from, use that as the class name. So it actually inherits correctly. And that gives us access to, well, the entire player state functionality because we're extending player state. Now, if I actually go into, say, base player state here, you'll see that the class name is player state and we're extending state. Okay, so that's the base. Let's go into the full state. Let's scroll all the way up. Class name is the player full state and it's extending player state. So everything is now working fine. And we can now kind of just create as many states as we want to very quickly without ever having to now think about the exit, enter, and ready state functionality or starting the physics process up again. It's just all done for us. Now that's project-specific templates sorted. What about global templates? I'm going to delete this test template real quick. I'm going to hit Control S and save. Now what I'm going to do is, on the screen you'll see some paths pop up. These are paths to the Godot script templates folder for global templates. This is not actually in like the editor or actually in your files here. It's actually on your computer in your app data folder. Now on Windows specifically, you just press the Windows key and R at the same time. You'll get the run menu. You just type in this path and it will take you straight to the templates folder, which is %appdata% /Godot /script templates /. And there we go. Right, we're now in the script templates folder. Now I created this character body 2D one as a little test to make sure it works. I can go and delete that. And I can go and create a new folder because it's kind of the same thing, right? Inside of the editor version of script templates, we create a thing called state and then, or a folder called state, and then we create a GD script for the template. We can do the same in here. So let's go new folder. We'll do this one for, let's do this one for player state specifically. So this is not going to be for state, this is going to be for player state. And then we'll create a new text document in here, and I'll call it default We'll call it default hello underscore world. And I will not capitalize the E. There we go. So this is a .text file. We're going to want to make sure that we change this to a .gd file. Now, to do that, if you have extensions enabled, you can actually go and rename it like so. It'll pop up with a little warning. You just click yes, and now it's a GD script file. And all you have to do now is open that. You open it, and you'll get in whatever text editor or IDE that you actually kind of prefer to use. I am using VS Code at the moment. It's kind of my preference. You can just start doing the same type of code again, where you will do the extends, and then you'll do the underscore base underscore. Then you'll give it a function. So let's just do func underscore ready. Ignore the fact that there is no IntelliSense. I have yet to hook up the Godot 4.2 and VS Code together. I plan on making a tutorial about that in the future because I think that's something that people would actually like to see. Yes, we create the ready function like so, and then we can just go ahead and give it some base functionality. We'll just make it print hello world, classic hello world. Make sure that is actually correct. There you go, hit Control S and save. Now I can close this out. I can close this folder down, and I can go into my scenes, into my state machine. We'll go into player states because this is a player state. I will create a new script in there. I will inherit from player state, so it knows that. And now you'll see we have project specific, the default player state, which is the one that we set up with the state functionality. And then we have the editor specific one, which is the default hello world. Now this will show up for any class that has the state, or any state type class, or any player state type class that we have that actually uses the name player state. This will always show up in the editor for every project. Now if I click on this, I'll just leave it as a new script, and I click create, and then I will go and find it. There you go. And you'll see, once again, player state, print, ready, and it's already set up and sorted and done. And all we have to do now is just instantiate the script like we would normally do for a state, and it will print hello world as soon as we're done. That is global and project specific templates done. Now, in the future, we will be going through for the enemies, for multiple different types of enemies, for probably the camera, for the actual game loop itself. We'll be adding state machines to a lot of different things and adding a lot of different templates that we can actually use. Now, that's actually one thing I want to also go over is global templates are very useful. They are very, very good for, say, take our movement component or movement handler that we made previously. So if I go down to my handlers and I go down into my movement handler script here, this. Say I don't actually ever want to type this out again. Well, what I can do is go and create a global template for this and call it the movement handler. That way, I always have the template ready to go. This is just a very base thing that I can just come in, modify as if I need to, but use it as a default base. And it'll, always be there. Extremely useful. But don't go too far with it. You don't want to kind of have way too many default templates for too many different things that you may or may not use. A lot of the times I will just stick to editor specific templates and not global templates. Like I want to stick to project templates, not global templates, because project templates, I find code tends to change depending on how the project is. Like this movement code works for this game, but I might want to make a lot of tweaks to it or change it up entirely for a different game. And I might want to use something called a movement handler. And I just don't want to end up having a lot of different types of, confusion around that when it comes to kind of creating scripts and then having to read through a bunch of lists and things like that. Yeah, so that's literally, a short but sweet video. I just wanted to cover that today. I hope this helps. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you're having a great game dev journey, and I will see you in the next video.